Sonicstate here at Superbooth 2019 with Calcat at Novation. Ooh.
Hey guys.
And look what we got here. This is the Summit. The Summit or other.
Indeed it is.
Now, the Summit, I guess, in a nutshell, is two peaks squeezed together.
Yep.
With loads of extra goodies.
I think that's a really good way to kind of to start to think about it. We've
Okay.
got some really quite nice new stuff going on inside as well.
Yeah.
But yes, certainly as an initial way to consider this
Yes.
is two, like let's say, independent peak synthesizers crammed inside a really nice feeling keyboard with great keyboard.
61 keys, nice to see.
61 keys, and of course lots of knobbies.
Nice to see Novation doing a big keyboard again.
Absolutely.
You know,
yeah,
like
I
the
think so. Yeah.
Supernova and some of those great
Indeed.
synths. It's lovely to see something substantial again.
Yeah.
Now, I guess if we start here,
We can go left to
Let's
right.
go left
Indeed.
to right,
Well,
yeah.
of course, yes. So, as we've found, we have, basically two separate engines inside here.
Which gives
and
us-
and if I start to put, well, it gives us 16 voices
as
in
opposed to 8
total,
in the peak,
of course. So we've got an arpeggiator on there, but if we just let's just make some,
and we can see the voices.
and you see your voice allocation happening there.
Right.
Now we're here currently in a single mode, so we're playing single patches, and we have up to 16,
16
voices with that.
yeah.
So, as I say, we have the two separate instruments inside, two separate synthesizers inside, if you like, but
Right.
obviously at this point they're working together as a single entity. But of course we have the multi-mode here. Now, it's a bitimbral instrument. That means we can separate those two parts into parts, and when we go into multi, you'll see now our multi-controls light up.
And they got it in blue.
Indeed, so this blue means that we're in part A.
Yeah.
If we go orange, we're in part B.
Ah, nice. And like if we look here, the actually that colour scheme goes right to the sort of the wheels as well.
Yeah, indeed. So we've got LEDs inside the mod wheels,
Nice.
and they're obviously just switching through as well.
Yeah.
And actually, if I press them together, they go white,
Oh,
which
okay.
now gives me a layer that allows me to control
So
both at the same
same
time.
time.
Yeah.
Great.
So underneath the multi-part controls here, we've got multi-mode switching. So we have layer. Now in a layer, if I play, you can see on the voice here
Ah, the colour, the blue and orange colour scheme again.
Exactly. So that's telling me what voices I'm using, and of course the layer is stacking those two patches on top of each other into split mode. Now this is really basically managing the keyboard as opposed to the synth engine. The split point is default to C3, but if I press and hold that and just say, okay, I want the split point there. Okay.
Great.
Now everything below is going to be part A, and anything above the split point is going to be part B. So this is really from a performance point of view, the old story of bass lines in the left hand, lead lines in the top up here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's just really designed to give a nice management for the keyboard splitting.
Dual.
And then dual, pistols at dawn. So no, dual mode is basically when we split them into two discrete and separate synths. So, obviously now if I play, I'm playing part A, only part A. If I go to part B now, I'm playing only part B. And of course, just switching between them allows me to get into the controls here,
Right.
into the pots and start to have a bit of fun with that as
And
well.
so we could latch a part and
Indeed.
then jump to the other part.
This is actually a really nice thing to do. Let's see if I can find. There's some nice patches in here somewhere. Wild Horses. This is the one I like. So I'm going to latch on part A, latch on part B. We're in layer mode, so they'll both play now. But so we have two independent arpeggiators running. But of course, we've got our rhythm controls here, so I can really independently control them.
What's rhythm doing?
And then rhythm is changing the rhythm. So it's changing the rhythm of the arpeggiator. At the minute, I think this is just 16ths, but if I go to a different speed. So you can start to play around with that. And they're independent arpeggiators, so I play with the gate time there. Maybe set that to play or random, few octaves difference. Go back to this one, change the gate length of that, change the rhythm. So we've got almost like a generative kind of system here, just from the arpeggiator
And
itself.
this is a lot more hands-on control of the arpeggiator than we saw on the
Absolutely,
peak.
yeah, indeed. So we'll just stop those. But yeah, absolutely. We really want to think of this as a performance instrument. It's a keyboard, it's a player's instrument. The keyboard feels great. We've got all the control here right in front of us. But some of the performance controls that are on the peak, for example, are menu-based, but here we've exposed them and we've brought them up to the top surface, so it's just giving us more hands-on control over that part. So interestingly, you know, we have our arpeggiator controls here. From a sound design point of view, we can change the way that the voices are, whether we're working in a poly mode, a mono mode, or legato glide mode. All these different modes available here.
What's a poly 2? What to poly?
That's a really good question, Gaz, and I shall refer you to our manual on that one for today. So, yeah, but I can find out and let you know.
That's okay.
But yeah, I mean, basically the two different, I think it's different ways that the voices are allocated. I think if we go to Poly 2 now, it's going to stick on a single voice allocation here.
Nice.
So I think that's obviously for when we're working with envelopes and tails of releases and that sort of thing.
All right.
But anyway, when we move through into this section, that is
Oscillators.
the peak oscillator section.
With the 3
That's
oscillators.
identical, absolutely.
And 3 oscillators per layer, of course.
3 oscillators per layer, of course. And then our different switching here, and then through into more to access the wave tables as well.
Tables,
So there's
excellent.
70 wave tables.
So when we're in that sort of both mode, then we're talking about a 6 oscillator synth, aren't we?
Pretty much, yeah, absolutely. I mean, in a layer point, you've got a 6 oscillator synth. Of course, the layers are using 2 different patches, so it's kind of, you know, or you could use the same patch if you want. But another neat trick for doing that, actually, and we should talk about this, is the connectivity on the back.
Yeah.
So we've got a main set of outputs and an auxiliary set of outputs. So obviously I'm going to the mixer here, I've got part A in one channel on the mixer, part B in one channel here, but then I've got an auxiliary input. Sorry, not auxiliary, I've got an audio input, I beg your pardon.
Stereo input. Two
it's stereo,
inputs.
yes, so it's a left and right input there. And of course that can come into the instrument before the filter, so it acts as a voice, or alternatively it can come in just before the effect, so we can just treat it like an effects processor. But a nice little hack is, of course, if I take an auxiliary out here and feed it back in here, then I can have a true 6 oscillator polysynth, which is kind of a nice thing to do.
Yeah, cool.
So, yeah. But then moving on the top panel...
Oh, I just want to say, when you talked about effects, that effects engine is duplicated twice, isn't it?
It is. And we have 2 sets of chorus, 2 sets of delay, 2 sets of reverbs.
So those 2 inputs then, could you possibly have 2 separate synths and one have...
Okay, so the stereo input is hitting here in stereo.
Right.
So there's no kind of way to sort of sum that to a mono at the moment. It's possible that we could take a look at doing something like that.
Just
but,
sort of like this
coming
being
in.
like the center of your
the whole process. The whole process.
A multi-synth kind of setup for live.
Well, but I mean, I must admit the reverb is a true. I think it's really, really nice. The algorithm that Chris Huggett designed for that was just so nice.
Oh, so Chris Huggett, I mean, you know,
it's got Chris,
absolute legend,
indeed.
So
indeed,
yes,
indeed.
so it's nice. There is sort of some of his hallmarks that have carried through.
Well, indeed. I mean, a really nice one to talk about, and this is actually quite a different feature than the one that you find in the Peak.
Oh, okay.
The filter's had a kind of a redesign.
Interesting.
Now, it's still the same filter.
Yeah.
But what we've done is we've done kind of a clever thing to kind of use it in a different way.
Okay.
So it's a state variable, low pass, band pass, high pass, 12 dB, 24 dB.
Right.
But a 24 dB filter in here is basically 2 12 dB summed together. And if we go to more. Okay, more. Actually, I think on the final unit this will say dual.
Oh, okay.
And the reason it will say dual is because what we're going to do, well, what this does is it effectively splits the 2 12 dB filters apart. It separates them.
So this is definitely a Chris Huggett.
Well, I mean, there's a bit of Oscar heritage on there because the separation was one of the really, really nice features on the Oscar.
Nice.
And here it is again.
Really?
And so when we go into that mode, it opens up a menu here, and now I have a separation control to actually push those 2 filter blocks apart. So we offset them, we widen, let's say, the cutoff position between them, and then the cutoff control here will move them kind of in parallel, if you like. This is exactly how the Oscar did it.
Yeah.
But interestingly, you know, we've got our standard filter shapes, low pass, band pass, high pass, but then we go into the combinations here, and there are 9 different combinations. So here's low pass into high pass. Of course, that's really a band pass, but you've got a variable kind of control over the separation for that. Low pass into band pass, high pass into band pass, and then we see the plus point, and now that means we're in parallel. So we can hit the filter, both filters at the same time. It's a dual filter system at that point. And then if we go over to, for example, low pass, get it nice and resonating. we're already on a preset that may not benefit from it, but we can get our nice kind of double resonant peak kind of vowel sounds, format stuff, and it's really nice to work with. The other nice thing is that separation, the ability to move the two filters apart from each other is also now a destination in the mod matrix.
Oh, right.
So we can actually apply an LFO to that and just kind of actually when you put a sample and hold on that, you get some really, really interesting sounds coming through from it.
So speaking of LFOs, I mean, obviously there's two LFOs here, but what can we see here on the envelopes?
Well, I'm particularly happy with this one because that's something I always wanted to see on our instruments, the loop button for the envelopes. So loops appeared on the, I think on the Base Station 2 in the 2.5 update a while back, and then we put it into peak for 1.2. But again, of course, that was in the envelope.
Like a menu,
But now we just switch it on, and there it is. And also, I mean, again, this is in peak as well, of course, but we actually can give a specific value or specific number of repeats. So actually, that's quite interesting. If, for example, if you're making a clap sound or something like that, you might just want a double hit of the envelope just to kind of just to give it that kind of nice clap sort of feel. Yeah, you can have up to 128 there, or 127, I guess is what we put it on. But then we go to on, and then
it's like an LFO. It'll just continue.
Exactly. It's just going to continue, and it's just a wonderfully, it's kind of so nice to sort of shape the LFO like this with the hands. That's lovely.
And it's nice then because that's loopable on all, and if we look.
Yeah, exactly. So envelope 2 can also have a switch.
So that's
yeah. In fact, it's interesting you mention that because there are a number of knobs. For example, I've got to talk about these. These are one of my favourites that have made it on here.
Oh yeah.
We've exposed the FM controls again onto the top panel. FM is obviously a big part of the Peak sound and what Peak does, but the FM side is again buried in the mod matrix. And what you need to do there is you need to go to the mod matrix and say, okay, I want to turn on FM. So to do that is very much a focused kind of idea, a concept of what you want to do with the sound.
Yes.
But of course, when you're faced with knobs like this, things happen and accidents happen.
Yeah.
And exposing the frequency modulation here actually saves 9 slots in the mod matrix, but also gives you a much more hands-on approach to the FM side, and therefore those happy accidents, those kind of sound designs happen a lot quicker, and it's a lot of fun as well. So and actually, as I say, these 3 single pots here, they have 3 functions. So this is a manual control. So how much is oscillator 3 going to frequency modulate oscillator 1? How much will it do it? That's the amount. Then I go mod envelope 2. The amount is set already. That manual control is set.
Yep.
But now I go to mod envelope 2, make a shape here, and then have that much of mod envelope 2 controlling it. Go to LFO, then have this much LFO controlling it. So even though it's a single pot, these buttons,
you've got 3.
You've got 3 specific controls in there as well.
Neat.
Yeah.
Great.
So indeed.
Wow. So I think we're kind of almost there now, aren't we? So obviously the hands-on controls there of all the effects
as well. And as I say, as we said before, there are 2 engines in here. There are 2 sets of effects. And actually, if I go to my voice menu over here, you'll see if I'm in a multi, go to voice, audio input here, and that can go in pre-filter, so we can run it through the analog filters and 3 distortion points before going into these nice effects. Pre-filter or post-filter. But this is part A. So if I switch over to part B now, you'll see no audio input in there. So why don't we send it through part B as well? So we can actually, use it as 2 effects processors in one.
In one, yeah.
And we can do clever things as well with the routing. For example, in the settings up here. By the way, it's important for me to say that some of these pages may change because we're still on fairly early firmware with this. Although, it's moving on at a nice pace. But here, you've got your output routing. So I can say, actually, I want both synth parts to come out of the auxiliary output rather than the main output for whatever reason, Part B, I can just switch that to main or to the auxiliaries. I can move here, I can route my effects out of different things. So I could have dry synth coming out here, all effects coming out here if I want. And if I move over at the end here, I can just say, okay, well, FXB, I'm just going to use basically as an external processor signal.
Right.
And not bother the synth engine at that point. So, there's a very kind of versatile kind of routing system for the audio coming in and coming out of the synth as well. And a long release sound. There we go.
Wow, okay, well, I think we're about there. So in terms of pricing.
Yep, indeed.
Do we know what it's going to cost?
Yes, it's going to be 2,200 euros, and it's going to be available in stores. It's going to be September. I'm pretty certain it's going to be. Yeah, they'll be in the stores in September. Certainly no later. I mean, we're already quite a way down the line with this.
Yeah, you can see.
We've got firmware work to do now, of course, but that's all coming together nicely. And yeah, it's a nice instrument.
Yeah, well, brilliant. It's really super exciting. Thank you so much for showing it.
Thank you, Gaz.
Awesome.